Hey everybody, welcome to the Fabulous Empty Nest with me, your host Angie, and welcome to Base Camp. As you can see, I have gotten it pretty well tidied up in here. Everything's packed up and it's a lot of it is in containers, and then I'm slowly kind of going through all the yarn in the cubbies, and when it comes closer to moving day, I'll just put all of that into containers as well. But I'm trying to use as much of that as possible, which brings me to why we're here today. I have been making these beautiful prayer shawls. Here's one that I made. This is actually the first one that I made. And they're just so warm and cozy because they're either a chunky yarn or it's doubled worsted 4-weight yarn, and so it's thick and chunky and very warm. And then the other one that I made is this one right here, which I think this one's my favorite. I'm in the process of putting the fringe on it. I'll steam it and then I'll trim it. So right now it's very random, but it will be steamed and then it will be trimmed. I'm not going to make it like all one length. I want it to be kind of random, but right now it's like really random. So what we're going to do today is do a quick little tutorial on how to make these prayer shawls. Very easy, super fast, and I almost feel embarrassed that I'm making a tutorial for it because like it's so easy, but at the same time I remember when I first started crocheting, I wouldn't even have thought how to make something like this. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway because I've had a couple people ask if I would do a tutorial on the prayer shawl, and so I'm going to do that, and I hope that you enjoy it. Okay, so I've chosen this Loops and Threads Charisma yarn. It's got a nice weight. It's a 5-weight, and it asks for a 8mm hook, which is what I'm going to use. And this pairs really nicely with double-stranded worsted weight yarn. So I usually start the foundation chain out with, I think it's 140. So we're going to go ahead and check. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have 145, and then I added 2 to use as my turning chain. So I'm going to half double crochet in the back bump of the 3rd chain from the hook. And then I'm just going to half double in the back bump all the way across. I know it's harder to crochet in the back bump, but what it's going to do is give you a really nice edge on your shawl. To where I don't even have to, I don't know if you can see that. I don't even have to do an edging on these prayer shawls because they come out so nice. So you're just going to go all the way back across, working a half double in the back bump of this foundation chain. And once you get to the end, and I'll show you again the back bump. So if you turn your chain over, you've got these back bumps, and you're going to be working into these bumps right here. And like I said, it's kind of a pain in the rear end to work in the back bumps, but it is so worth it in the end. So as I'm working out this foundation chain, I'm just going to talk to you for a minute, a little bit about my experience with making prayer shawls. When my daughter, my eldest daughter, when she turned 14, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. and it was a very scary time for our family. And at the time, I was an avid crocheter, but I was making a lot of Afghans and a lot of sweaters and felted hats and little girl sweaters. That was kind of my thing at the time. But I had all this leftover yarn, and so I wanted to make something for my daughter, and I was making a bunch of hats. So I made a bunch of hats for her because we thought she was going to lose her hair, but she didn't. And then several years later, when she turned 18, she was re-diagnosed with cancer again. And this time it was a much more aggressive cancer, and it was very, very scary. And so she had to go through chemo and all the things, and did lose her hair. And so I would sit and make hats for all the people in the chemo units. And one day I was like, I feel like I want to make something a little more meaningful. And I came up with my first prayer shawl that I made for my daughter. And it just turned out so beautiful, and it was so heartfelt because the whole time that I was working on it, I was praying for her. Like, I was literally just verbally praying for her, or if it wasn't verbally, it was, in my mind, but I was thinking of her. I was thinking of her when she was a little child, and just having lots of fond memories of her. And so these prayer shawls, I don't just make them randomly and then try to sell them. They're made for a specific person. And as I said, when I'm working on this shawl, I'm intentionally working on it, and I'm putting lots of love and thought and prayer into each one, because I think that, I don't know about you, but I know when somebody's thinking about me or praying for me, like, I just know. And I know also how it makes me feel when I pray for people. And so this is just one of those items that I love to make. It's not something I make a lot of because it is so intentional. And so again, when you're making these, think of a person that you want to make it for, and then pray for that person. Think about that person. Think about wonderful thoughts, memories, and make that shawl for them filled with all of that love, and they will know it. I always say whatever's made from the heart is received by the heart. So, okay, we are almost finished. When we get to the end, we're going to chain 2. And that's when we're going to start our pattern, but I'm going to actually show you how I change colors really quick. Okay, so I finished my, I have finished my row, excuse me. I have finished the foundation chain, or foundation row. What is happening here? Good Lord. Okay, as you probably already know, my videos and tutorials are not conventional, and they're probably silly. Okay, so we've got our foundation finished here. So the way that I change colors with this is before I complete this last half double. All right, I'm going to go into, I've got 2 more left here. So this last chain in the foundation chain, I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to insert into the back bump, pull through, and then I'm going to cut my yarn about 5 inches long. And we want to make sure that they're about 5 inches long because we're actually going to use this tail as fringe. So we want to make sure that we have it long enough. I like my fringe to be about 4 inches, so it gives me room to trim if I need to. Now I'm going to be using 2 strands of this worsted weight in this pretty, it's not a teal, like, what is this? I don't know what it is. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure I have about 5 inches because we want it to be long enough to be a tail. And I'm going to pull over this yarn. I'm going to pull this yarn through like this, and then I'm going to tie a knot in these two, in the tail of the rust, and I'm going to tie the tail of the blue, and now that will serve as fringe at some point. So now I'm going to start heading back. This is when the pattern starts. So I'm going to chain 2, because I'm going to start this row out with a half double, and then I'm going to single crochet, and then I'm going to half double and single crochet. And this creates a really pretty pattern. Half double, single crochet, half double, single crochet. And I'm going to do that all the way across. And when I get to the end, I'm going to change colors in the last stitch. So every row is a different color. Now, if you end on a half double, then when you turn to come back, you're going to always put a single crochet in a half double, and you're going to put a half double in a single crochet. So if your last stitch is a half double, then when you start to go back, you're going to chain 1 and single, and vice versa. If you end with a single crochet, then you're going to chain 2 and half double. And I really try to be mindful about my stitches, because if you don't have it right, like if you accidentally put 2 singles together, which I do often, it will mess your pattern up. When you go back, it won't look right. And so about every 10 stitches, I just go back and look and make sure that my pattern is right, because I have messed it up before and had to pull out like a couple of rows, and I don't like doing that. So I just check it every so often to make sure that I'm not doing something crazy. Okay, so I'm going to end on a half double. So I've got my half double. I'm going to cut it about 5 inches. And so now I'm going to use this Premier Canyon Colors, and it's also a 5 bulky weight. So I'm going to add this on to the end. So I'm going to start with about 5 inches, and I'm going to finish this half double. I'll show you again. I'm going to yarn over and insert my hook into the stitch, and I'm going to pull up so I have 3 loops on the hook. And then I'm just going to take this new yarn and pull it through, which makes the changing of colors really easy. And then I'm just going to tie a knot. It doesn't even have to be a tight knot. We'll do that at the end. And now I'm back to start my 3rd row. So here, because I ended with a half double, I'm going to chain 1, turn, and I'm going to do a single crochet, half double, single crochet, half double, single crochet, half double. And so again, if you end with a half double, you're going to start your new row with a single, with a chain 1 and a single. And if you end with a single crochet, then you're going to start your new row with a chain 2 and a half double. And this is so fun because you are just working with random colors. You know, you're just pulling stuff out of your stash basket. And that's what I do. Like, and if I have, so say if I just have one skein like this, but I want to double it, I just take the end and I roll a ball enough for a row, and I make a ball of it from this skein. So I don't have to have 2 skeins to you know, to double. I just make one out of the skein that I have. So it makes it really easy to do. And I also like to think of this shawl as just a really good mindfulness project. I all week long am just running and, you know, helping people and doing things. And oftentimes I'm just not in my feet. And because when I get like that, I don't know about y'all, but when I get to where I am so busy and just not paying attention, that's when I hurt myself the most. That's how I broke my toe. That's how I fell the other day. I'm just not in my feet. And so to mitigate those kinds of accidents that just make me so irritated, I have been really trying to take the time to be in my feet, to be more mindful. So here we go. We've got this pretty, already it's looking so pretty. Look at that. So keep going. I like my shawls to be about 17 or 18 inches wide. I don't like them to be too wide because it's supposed to be more of a wrap rather than like a blanket or an actual shawl. So just keep going in this pattern until you get the size that you like. And then I will show you how I finish off the fringe once you get to that size. Thanks for being here, and we'll move on to fringe here in just a moment. Okay, so once you get it finished, you're gonna have ends that look like this. And that'll look like that on both sides. See? So it doesn't look very nice. And on this first one that I made, I didn't do a very good job at making sure all of my strings were long. So this one's going to be a little more challenging. However, this one, I did a much better job at making sure that my strings were long. They're longer, as you can see. So this is my first attempt at adding fringe. Now again, it still needs to be steamed, and so I'll steam it, and I'm going to probably add maybe another row of fringe in here because I want it to be very fringy. And then what I'll do is lay it out flat after it's been steamed. I'll comb it out really good like that. And then I'll trim it. And again, I don't want this to be like super straight. I want it to be kind of random. So honestly, once I add another row, I may not do anything to it because I do like how that's looking. But as you can see, my little tied off, and then I also went through and just secured these little knots that I had just to make sure that they aren't going to come undone. But yeah, this is it. And then once you get the fringe on, you're finished. So it's very, very easy and very fun to make. And yeah, you can just use your stash. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help however I can. My email is in the community space, and I try to put it in the description of all my videos, so you can find it there as well. But I appreciate you checking it out, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.